live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back at Better Than Ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. This is like the metaphorical racing to make time over here. You know, it's always a cluster trying to join Zoom on my end for some reason. No matter how many times I update this thing, it always goes slow. Anyway, though, I'm on time, and it's good to be with you guys wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Big show today. I say that a lot, but we're coming off the Oscars still, and we never did review Coda. Unfortunately, we never did get to Coda, and I cannot pass judgment because I didn't see Coda until about 2 weeks before the Oscars myself. So I was late on it. But we're here, and Coda kind of came from, like, it was considered a dark horse winner throughout much of the Oscars, and then, like, the last week and a half, it gained real steam. And, of course, I didn't pick it to win. I picked Power of the Dog, but I'm happy Coda won. Wouldn't have been my choice, but it's still a very good movie, and I'm interested to hear, more so interested, because my review's been live for a couple weeks. I'm more interested to hear what these guys have to say about it, so we will touch on that, obviously. That'll be the big meat of the show. And then the news broke in the morning last Wednesday, and we had the Oscars to cover on top of an incident that's, finally starting to die a little bit in the news between Will Smith and Chris Rock. Is finally starting to die a little bit. We talked all about the Oscars last week. We didn't even touch much on Bruce Willis. And we didn't even touch much on him. So we're going to touch on his retirement as well as his aphasia diagnosis and I think you guys didn't really know this, at least, but there was rumors about Bruce Willis for the last about year or so. And I just caught on to him about 3-4 months ago. So I've kind of been waiting for this shoe to drop, and then it finally did. And it's sad nonetheless. But we will dive into that, too, to close the show. That'll be our little news tidbit for today. But it's good to be with you, and it's good to be joined by these two gentlemen who are starting April off strong, starting April off busy, aren't you, Joe?
Oh, yeah. I got events coming up. It's almost summer, and when you work at a park district in the summer, that's all you're going to be doing is event after event after event. So if you notice me being more tired from these shows, it's probably because we have ass-numbing movies to watch and also long events to hold at my park district.
Ass-numbing movies, he says. I reserve that title for the ones that are over 2.5 hours and suck. Yeah. Those are the ones that get.
I was gonna say, did you see Jurassic Park is the new one's gonna be the longest one in the franchise?
Oh shit! How long is it?
It's 20 minutes longer. It's 2 hours and 32 minutes. It's it's the longest by 20 minutes of the previous films.
Okay. Anyway, Dom, how are you?
Doing all right. I'm actually gonna pretty much be doing what Joe's doing in about a month or two, if not sooner. So that's gonna be cool. It's just pretty much the nature of our jobs. So I can relate heavily. And also but sometimes my job takes me to Chicago and I brought lunch and I forgot to bring it back. That's all right. I'm going to have to.
Did you go somewhere?
No, there's a Chicago office related to the job. And, so that's, every now and then I get to go to the city, which is cool.
No, I meant, did you go to a restaurant and forget the food?
No. I brought lunch to work. And I brought my own lunch, and then I forgot the Tupperware there.
It's an underrated feeling that I know we all have. When the lunch you bring to work is not the lunch you want by lunchtime. We all have that.
There are days like that. I open it, I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna get a burger, and I just get up and leave.
It's like whose lunch is this in there? I don't know. And then you just wait until everybody's gone or something, and then just carefully extract it from the work fridge. But moreover, it's good to be with you guys, though. I'm going to wind up being very busy this summer too, obviously getting acclimated to a new radio station. We do a boatload of events. I'm in a bigger city too, bigger area. There's some festivals and fairs and everything. Iowa's the fair capital of the world, apparently, too. I've already heard the names of 8 different fairs and whatnot. Fun fact, too, Dubuque is the top 5 in most concerts in the Midwest. So I think that's fascinating because you know what, a lot of like artists, they say like, why not, screw it, we'll perform in Dubuque, because that's like the layover point between Des Moines and Chicago, you know, for when they're touring. So then they're like, screw it, we're already in the neighborhood anyway, might as well play for Dubuque. So we're like, so then between those artists and the ones that prioritize it, like we've shot up in like top 5, I think number 5 or number 4 in most concerts in the Midwest in a given year. You know, probably most concerts during COVID too, because it's Iowa. Anyway, moreover though, we'll get into Sleepless with Steve. We'll talk about CODA, Children of Deaf Adults, or Child of Deaf Adults. That is the acronym in which this stands for. This won Best Picture last Sunday, and it's on Apple TV Plus. Apple TV Plus takes home the first Oscar for Best Picture of all the streaming services, though. This is based on a 2014 French movie called, and I cannot pronounce French titles to save the life of me, La Famille Bélier, I think is how you want to say it. I don't know, but that's the only attempt I'm going to make. It's a coming-of-age story, and a tender one at that. It's directed by a woman named Sian Heder, who really struck gold with this material too, I think, at least in terms of really mining it for a lot that it can present to. This is a movie that I think first and foremost, its lasting impact on me is that like I came away from it believing this was an actual family. And that's how strong this movie is right out of the gate, I think. It establishes a tremendous family dynamic because it centers around Amelia Jones's character. Amelia Jones plays a girl named Ruby. She is the youngest in her family. She's got an older brother played by Daniel Durant, and she's got parents played by Troy Kotzer, who won the Best Supporting Actor nomination, and the famous Marlee Matlin, who was the first deaf actress to win an Oscar. And I think she was the youngest Oscar winner, too, at the time, Best Actress for Children of a Lesser God, all the way back in 1986. And a Morton Grove, Illinois native, too. I want to throw that in there as well. But it's basically about Ruby, played by Amelia Jones. She can hear. She's the only one in her whole family that can hear. And she has kind of gone her life without much of a childhood because she's had to be there. She's had to be either the interpreter or the middle person in between her family who's deaf. And the family works on a fishing boat. And did they say exactly what area they live in? They're on the East Coast, obviously. But did they say?
Boston.
Did they name?
I thought it was Boston, but then they
Boston?
mentioned Boston as like a separate entity. So maybe like Massachusetts overall or somewhere very close by.
I didn't know if it was like Manchester or what. I mean, that was probably a blink and you miss it line. But yeah, it is in Boston, and they work on a fishing boat, and that's their sole source of income, though. And she finds Ruby, Amelia Jones's character, she finds herself in a really unfair position because she's a kind of a pariah to her family in a way because she can hear, and then she's an outcast at school because of her family. And there's a really good scene between her and Marlee Matlin, her mother in the movie, that talks about like, and I didn't even think about this, but this has to be a reoccurring problem, is that like, if you're a CODA, so to speak, if you're a child of deaf parents and stuff, you probably have to go through speech therapy when you first start school, because how else are you going to learn how to talk?
Yeah.
You know, you learn ASL, but you really, you know, you probably have difficulty enunciating. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't know what you're missing and stuff. And that's alluded to the fact that ASL was her first language. And then she had to learn English and she had to learn how to speak properly later on in life. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. But she winds up pursuing music. She winds up pursuing like the school choir. That was the one thing about this movie too, is that I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but that was the one thing too. That was probably my only like little thing with the movie, is that like it took her this long to figure out she could sing, and she's got that kind of a voice. It took her that long to try and pursue singing, and she does it because her crush does it too. I'm like, well, that's an odd way to figure out you're gifted at this age. But anyway, yeah, so she pursues singing, and then it becomes the push-pull debate of whether or not she wants to leave to go to school. She wants to go to a music conservatory and leave her family behind and pursue her own life, but that puts the family's fishing boat in jeopardy because they don't have somebody who can actually hear to respond to the radio signals on the boat radio, give instructions, and just really keep the family together as well. So it's a tender story. Damn good soundtrack too. A lot of good musical performances in this movie too. There's a lot to dig about this movie through and through. I want to throw it over to you, Dom, to start though. Your thoughts on Coda?
It's a solid, well done movie that, even though I think we all felt like we've seen these kinds of stories before. And I know if you can zoom out, literally every story's been told already. But even then, just, the coming of age story where the child in question has to, choose between family or their own dreams, specifically one in arts, while the family business, it's like, our business or our family legacy. It's, it's been kind of done before, but it's, how you tell that story is where it matters. Devil's in the details, and the execution of having a cast, prominent, the prominent characters, be deaf and be able to express themselves through ASL is an achievement in and of itself. So it's a recognition of that, no doubt. You can't take that away from what this film is. And that's it. It was really cool because I quickly established that the deaf characters here have personalities beyond deaf, right? In so many other movies that, for a character who has a disability, that kind of winds up just being their whole personality or their whole point in the story. Here, it's both integral, but also fades into the background, because in numerous times where it's like, you almost, at least for me, you almost forget that these are deaf people. And, you're just, oh, okay. It's not a deaf guy, banging his wife in an embarrassing, incident. But no, it's just a dude banging his wife, a fisherman banging his wife. And, just that scene in the doctor's office where they're explaining their conditions, and the child Ruby has to translate for them, was hilarious. And it's quickly established, like, okay, there is something to these characters. It's not just going to be just complete drama bait or Oscar bait or whatever, where it's just deaf people being deaf, or deaf people, that's the whole point. And I very much established right away. I actually wound of the two conflicting entities here in this movie, that is being the family business and the dream, the individualistic dream of going off to and pursue one's artistic dreams. I actually wound up kind of more engaged with the family business, where it's like, I kind of want you to just stay and like explore this more, because that's pretty cool. Like, I would like to see this family business play out, while surmounting those challenges. And also, yeah, I feel like we've seen this kind of, teacher discovers artist, jewel in the rough, diamond in the rough. Although at the same time, I start to wonder, it's like, you're really focusing on this one girl. Like, these other kids can sing, but I get it. That's not the point of the movie. But it's and towards the end, as a little corny as it was, it did put a smile on my face. So, pretty solid overall, and we'll get into more details in a bit. But Joe, what was your overall?
I'm kind of in the same boat. It's very much, you could tell where this movie's going. It's very commercial filmmaking from time to time that we see, like Hidden Figures, and I'm just trying to think of other movies that have come out where it's just like, it almost feels like just, Hollywood patting themselves on the back, like, look, we're bringing up a social issue. Thanks, guys. Like,
not quite as much as Hidden Figures.
Yeah,
that felt really alike.
Yeah.
Okay,
This year. You could tell Hidden Figures did not do it well. Nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it anymore.
And I'm not saying Coda's going to have an everlasting legacy, but for like Hidden Figures, nobody speaks of.
Hidden Figures came 30 years too late, it feels like.
Yeah.
Just that kind of movie for that story. Whereas Coda, it's like, okay, maybe we're like 5 to 10 years late, or whatever.
And here's the thing. Here's the big difference between Hidden Figures and Coda. While both films have that very commercialized filmmaking, the difference being, Coda to me has way more interesting characters that, to give what Steve is saying, really actually do feel like a family. And that even though you could tell where this movie's going to go and what beats it's going to hit, you're there for the ride because you really do actually like hanging out with this family and seeing the journey they're taking together. figuring this out. I know, like, Dom, you said, like, the family boat stuff, like, that business was more interesting. And to me, it was as well. And, like, I will agree, like, it kind of does feel like forced conflict for drama's sake. But, like, I was still, like, throughout this whole runtime, I was involved with the film. I'm like, oh, I still got to see how this plays out. The third act to me is, you know, it does hit the, you know, the beats of, you know, other musicians with a dream themes throughout it, but it still hit me. And, like, there's a very touching moment because, you know, I thought this was really creative, and this is one of the scenes I went, damn, like, all right, whoever thought of that day was being very smart. When we finally get to hear the main actress, I gotta look up the character name, sorry.
Amelia Jones, Ruby.
Yeah, Ruby. When we finally hear Ruby sing, you're thinking, like, okay, we're gonna hear her sing and everything, and it's gonna be beautiful. But then you realize, like, oh wait, yeah, this movie's about her deaf parents, and it actually cuts to the perspective of them, and it's just in complete silence, and they're watching the room's reaction. And I thought, holy shit, like, that is actually really smart filmmaking right there. And then there's another touching scene involving the father, like, putting his hand on his daughter's throat to feel the vibrations of the vocal cords and everything. And that actually, I didn't cry in this movie, I would say. Nowadays, it's like, it's getting really hard for me, like, you know, to, like, start tear jerking during a movie. But that was plucking the heartstrings a bit. That did make me go, oh man, like, that is really heartwarming to see and beautiful. Was that scene between Ruby and her father, Frank. This is just, I see why it won Best Picture. Don't get me wrong, I really do. I just think, like, there were some other movies that were nominated. I was like, I just think that was just better overall. But, like, by all means, I do think this is a worthy, like, you know, candidate and a worthy winner of winning that Best Picture nomination. It's a ton of fun, not a ton of fun. It's a very heartwarming film, and, you know, it hits the beats it needs to. And to me, it's better than what we've gotten recently with, you know, yeah, Hidden Figures, Green Book to an extent as well. I'm glad I haven't seen the controversy of, you know, it's just like, why does you know, the deaf movie have to be, like, focused on people's deafness? It can't be about other things, because, you know, that's what I was worried about, because it's just people trying to find something to pick apart when something wins Best Picture, like they always do. But I'm glad I haven't seen that yet. I don't know if people have been, like, hating on the movie now that it's won Best Picture. But yeah, no, I thought this was very, very well done.
It's not as the Coda winning is nowhere near as, you know, controversial as, like, Saving Private Ryan losing to Shakespeare in Love or anything. But
Yeah.
Watching
I mean, let's be
this, I
honest,
was like,
too. Like, more people were talking about something else during the Oscars than the actual Oscar winners.
Sure.
Not to interrupt. I think it was Pulp Fiction that lost to Shakespeare in Love. I think it was Pulp.
Oh, my bad.
I think
Okay,
it was Pulp Fiction.
I might have been looking at a different award, but yeah, you know, nothing as controversial as that. But I was like, looking at that, I'm like, I would have chosen West Side Story personally over
I would have
Coda.
chosen West Side Story over this too.
And I know I'm heavily biased.
I would have chosen Licorice Pizza Licorice Pizza was my number one. West Side Story was number two, and that just goes to show you what how well thought of West Side Story was in my mind. Third would have been Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, I was gonna say Nightmare Alley is my one. I would have said
I think
Nightmare Alley.
fourth probably would have been Coda. But going back, I don't want to cut you off there, Dom, if you got something to add. I will say, going back to Joe's point though, about how, like, with Coda, you kind of see why it won Best Picture.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely a crowd pleaser type of a movie. It's definitely an inoffensive movie, although, I mean, social media, that word is almost, you can't even use it anymore. But like, the thing is, though, is that I don't think this ever had a fighting chance to win Best Picture last year. It's a lot easier, though, for people who have never watched a movie with deaf characters. And three-fourths of the cast is deaf. Yeah. Durant, Matlin, and Kotzer are all deaf in real life. And you can kind of assume that based on the fact that if they weren't, we'd really be getting this thing dragged through the rakes, or you know, raked over the coils. But my point is, though, like last year we had Sound of Metal, and it's a lot easier, I think, for people if they're going to watch a movie for the first time about deaf characters, or they're going to watch a movie that asks of them the moral crime to read subtitles, that it be something like this that is a little familiar narratively, that is a little bit more accessible. not that Sound of Metal is an overtly complex movie, but it's a grim movie.
Yeah.
It's a sad movie.
It's more artistically bold.
It's absolutely bold. It's bolder than this.
When we talk about, like, when I was saying, like, commercial filmmaking and everything, like, once again, I mean, I'm not knocking this movie. I think Coda is a great film.
I totally get what you're saying.
But like, you know, you do look at, like, what the Sound of Metal was trying to do with its filmmaking, its idea of, like, a direction it wanted to take with, you know, the idea of a character going deaf and bringing in, like, that whole, like, you know, idea of deafness in a movie compared to this. And hell, I'll even throw, like, Quiet Place Part 1 and Part 2 in there. I mean, that was a bold maneuver too, where it's like, it's not the main focus, but, like, actually making the heroic, like, hero of the second one, like, the main character of that basically being the deaf daughter in those movies.
Yeah, and I'll even say it pays off for Coda because I loved the opening of Sound of Metal, but by the middle and it really lost its way for me. So overall, if I had to compare Coda, and in terms of, like, as a overall movie, I think I would take Coda over Sound of Metal. But really, like,
you are so lucky. You are so lucky. My internet shit out that day at the Sound of Metal review. You are so lucky. That's all I have to say. You are so lucky, because I still think about, like, the final 20 minutes of Sound of Metal, because I do talk about that movie a lot.
It's damn good.
That whole, like, that's one of those great movies I hesitate to watch again, just because that movie hit me like a Mack truck. It does, yeah. That movie hit me like a Mack truck the first time when I watched it. If they could
recut it and, like, I don't know, take away 15 to 20 minutes somehow of that middle and just make it tighter, it would be like a perfect movie or something like that.
Recut this. Anyway, Coda, on the other hand, love you, Dom. On the other hand, you know what I will say is that Amelia Jones can sing. That is her actual singing voice in this movie. And Joe said that he resisted the urge, or he didn't tear up. I'll admit, this is the only one of the Best Picture nominees that did make me tear up.
Oh yeah.
And you know what it was? I always feel really, I mean, I'm a big music fan and music hits me, but, like, you know what song, like, that did it was, and you probably know where I'm going with this. It's not the final performance, but it's the montage scene with the song Both Sides Now. Like, I understand Both Sides Now. It's that montage coupled with if you listen to the lyrics of it's a very germane montage, and it's a song that's very germane to the actual struggle Ruby has. That was just an excellent song, beautifully sung. But even beyond that too, there's some interesting music choices in this. I really like the choice of "I Fought the Law" by The Clash when it shows Ruby's day of waking up at 3:00 in the morning. Mm-hmm. I really like that. And fun fact too, this, nobody cares about this except for me, but I feel compelled to mention it. When I first dabbled into radio on my high school radio station, when I walked in the station for the very first time, that was the song that was playing. I Fought the Law by The Clash. And that song has always stuck with me in that way. But anyway, there's that. Marvin Gaye's song "Let's Get It On" is the song of choice too, when Ruby shows her peers that she does have what it takes to actually sing. And I think, what's it called with Miles, that song Miles, You're All I Need to Get By. I think that's the song she does with him. There's some really good music choices in this. Like, I thought the soundtrack of this thing did elevate it. It wasn't like the typical ones. And then I think, like, Amelia Jones, like, actually singing too, like, they chose an actor too, who's not only good, but can actually perform and hit those high notes. I thought that tied it together. That gave this a little bit more authenticity in that department, in my opinion.
Yeah. It actually is a surprisingly engrossing movie, so long as you are able to, for the parts where the families interact. That really is the strongest part of this movie, without any doubt whatsoever.
You know who also, sorry.
I just say, if you can like get over some of this like inconsistencies and just be like, okay, you know what? Sure. Yeah. This teacher does not give a crap about any bit of other these kids or stuff. Like, I don't know if she got into Berkeley or she's trying to get into Berkeley without studying any kind of classical music, or with or not even studying like how to read music, apparently, or maybe they just didn't show. Okay, let's just pretend all that happens off frame. If you can just suspend all that, and just focus in on the family and the strong dynamic there. Again, I really wish that it kind of kills the plot, but like if you could just really focus in on that and just give me all that, I would have really, really loved this movie. But yeah,
you know what, or no, Joe, you were gonna go after this. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I actually had two things right there too. Like, I loved Eugenio Derbez's performance in this. Because like I thought like when he came on, he was gonna be the typical comedic like actor that he is. But I actually thought like he was pulled back in this. I don't know if Steve can agree with me because I saw him go oof at that second. But actually, I enjoyed it here. I wanted to like kind of point that out. And I'll let Steve take it from there. But before I do so, I do love that this movie, like, while it is like, bringing up like, how like a child of like, deafness is like, with her parents. I mean, not child of deafness, a child of deaf adults or whatever, is dealing with like, that whole lifestyle and everything, the family business. I do like also that another theme of this movie is about like, yeah, having your kid leave the nest, like, letting your bird leave the nest and everything, like, the whole idea of her going away to college and everything, being okay with letting that go. I thought that was also like, it's just like, again, it makes those parents feel more real. You put them in a very real scenario when it comes to that, because almost anybody can relate to that when it's time for your kid to go and move on, whether you're a parent or the kid themselves.
I had secondhand like pain from watching that too, because you remember when you did it, but no, I quite frankly, and I was going to seg to that too. I think Eugenio Derbez is the weak point of the movie.
Damn.
I think Eugenio Derbez is the weak point of the movie.
I think so too, actually.
I mean, I like the fact that he's in it because saying Eugenio Derbez is very fun. But really, I can't remember the last like major thing he's really done since Overboard. And I'm the only person that remembers Overboard. But like no, I Derbez is drawn so broadly here that he comes across like a cartoon character. And I understand that like you didn't want this movie to be too dramatically weighty. I get that. But he's drawn like a cartoon in a situational sitcom as opposed to like a mentor in a thoughtful drama. He's significant to the story. I don't know if Sean Heder afforded him too much creative like interpretation. She didn't like reel him in, or if he was written this broadly to begin with. I was not a fan of his character. And I was almost at the point of groaning whenever he was on screen because he disrupts the tone of this movie, I think, more often than he intends to. I don't think Derbez is a bad actor. I just think he's too cartoonish in this.
It didn't kill the movie or anything, but it absolutely did feel like two movies for me almost, when we're focusing on her singing career or like her singing dreams and hopes, and then versus, the family business, which is kind of the point, but not to the point where, you're getting tonal disruptions and you're really, and for me, it was kind of being taken out of it. Now, credit where credit is due, I guess. You didn't fall back on the trope of like the over caring, like a Helen Keller kind of situation where it's the over caring teacher who's perfect and guides her through everything and always has the answers. So having him kind of be a dick here to Ruby is was the better of the two options. But yeah, there was something about it that I think he mentioned like, so let's see if you can sing or if you've watched too much Glee. And it's like, this, I know you kind of were jabbing at it, but this like hints of Glee drama where it's like, I want to focus on this, not this. But you know what? Ultimately, he actually fixed it with another line for me in my head where he's like, I've got this whole life outside of you. And it's like, okay, know what? I'm just gonna.
That was the good moment. That was a good moment.
I was gonna, okay, cool. With that logic, I'm gonna suspend disbelief and just again focus on the family here, focus on the fishing part, because that was the good part for me.
We're at a good point right now where before we take our intermission, I think we could give our final ratings on this, unless you guys have additional thoughts. I think we're at a very good point now in the show too. I didn't think we were going to go as long as we would with this, as other movies too. I think the last point I'll just make as I parlay it into my final thoughts is that I'm so happy Kotzer won Best Supporting Actor, because after seeing this, I was pretty convinced he was going to. And a lot of people had Cody Smith McPhee for The Power of the Dog. But after watching both those movies, I thought, I don't see how they don't give it to Troy Kotzer. And Smith McPhee is young. He doesn't have a lot of acting credits, but neither does Kotzer. Kotzer has like less than 5 like real acting credits.
He's a theater guy, I think.
He's a theater guy, at least for film credits. He doesn't have many. He did cut his chops in theater, though. Kotzer's really good here. I think Kotzer's the finest performance. He's one of those actors who can say a lot without doing much at all. He just has that gruff exterior, and man, does he fit the salty environment of the East Coast. He looks it. He looks the part. He's funny as hell, and it really, this is outside of Coda, but like his Oscar speech really made me happy because it showed that there was like a real degree of authenticity about his character. And this is now, I think, the third time I've brought up the word authenticity when talking about this movie. That's the nice thing about this movie too, is that like the dynamic of the family feels authentic. The 3 of the 4 actors are deaf in real life. So you get a lot of empathy that bleeds through this screenplay and that breathes through on screen. With inclusivity becoming more of a focal point for a Hollywood that's kind of been really rigid and selective, too rigid and selective for its own good. I think Coda does a lot well. And, if it at least allows people, specifically Americans, to like recognize that subtitles aren't the bane of their existence, that they think they are, I think this is a really good movie to show that, because everybody I've talked to has really liked this movie, or at least recognized it as very solid. And I think the 3 of us are kind of spoiled just by the fact that we see a lot of movies, so we're aggressively familiar with this story. But I don't mind formula when it's well told, and I think this is well told. I give Coda 3 out of 4 stars. I'll throw it over to you, Joe, then you, Dom. Let's get this before we have to take our Zoom-sponsored intermission.
Took it right out of my mouth. We've seen it done before, but there's nothing wrong with that if it's done well, if it's like actually engaging, if it brings something at least relatively new or refreshing to the formula. And that's what this movie did. I had a great time watching this. I went to go see this in theaters, actually.
Lucky you.
If you don't have Apple TV, you can, because it won Best Picture, there are some theaters playing it in theaters right now. And one of the theaters by my house, Charlestown, is playing it. And I was like, okay, I got to go check this out in theaters. I could save like my monthly subscription for when Cha Cha Real Smooth comes out.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, no, I seeing this on the big screen, it was cool to see it that way as well. I think I was just even more engaged in it, like actually, like, being in, like, I know this movie's not really like sound amazing and everything, because it is like dealing with deaf parents, but like it kind of just added to it being in like a theater, and I was by myself too, so it felt like I was just watching at home anyway. This was very well done. I'm hoping that we see Troy Kotzer, get more films. All these actors get more films. I would love to see them included in more things now. For me as well, this is a 3 out of 4 star film. I very much enjoyed it.
Dom, send us to break.
One of my favorite moments from the Oscars was when Yoon Ye-jung from Minari had to present the Best Supporting Actor award, and she said, "Hey, I apologize because I'm gonna butcher like all your English names." And I thought it was funny that Troy Kotzer won. It's like, okay, even if she did butcher it, he couldn't even hear it. So I just thought that was a fun, small, ironic thing. Yeah, 3 out of 4 stars. It's a feel good movie. It's a heartwarming movie. We've seen it, this kind of story 1,000 times. I'm not, that's as jaded as I want to be with this, because really, it did the deaf community proud. It did Morton Grove, Illinois proud, because she is the mom in this movie. Gosh, I forgot her name already. She is
Marley Matlin.
Marley Matlin. She's from the Chicagoland area. True Blue, and she's from the area. And yeah, dude, it's a happy movie that I'm glad won. Inoffensive, and that's certainly in this environment. That's sometimes the best we can hope for. So yeah, 3 out of 4.
Very nice, gentlemen. We will be back in a few short minutes. We are talking a sad story, but a story that needs to be discussed with the retirement of Bruce Willis. You know, legends deserve to go out a lot better than this. And we will talk about that coming up shortly after a Zoom-sponsored intermission. We are Sleepless with Steve. We come to you live and in living color on YouTube every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. We'll be back in just about a minute and a half with more Sleepless with Steve. Back and better than ever with your favorite movie nerds. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Good to be with you. Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso joining me as always. And yeah, it's April. The weather should allegedly start warming anytime soon. Has it been rainy back home? Has it been rainy a lot back home?
Yeah, yes. Definitely in the past.
Because it's been miserable out here. It has been miserable. In the tri-state area, if you will. It has just been rainy constantly. You know, I feel like I moved to Portland. But moreover, we are going to talk Bruce Willis. We didn't get to this last week. And you know what's interesting and about this whole thing was that, like, and I sent this to you guys too, and I've pretty much told a lot of people this within earshot, is that, like, Bruce Willis, before we get into the sad news, Bruce Willis actually has 2 albums. And I would advise you to at least listen to The Return of Bruno, his debut album, which was essentially the basis for a documentary, an HBO documentary, which is kind of a pain in the ass to find. But it was about Bruce Willis kind of went Chris Gaines, like Garth Brooks, although he wasn't trying to be somebody completely different, but it was a mockumentary about him being a singer. And he actually released an album, and it's pretty damn good. Both of his albums are decent. The Return of Bruno's good. And I'm not going to lie, on my bar jukebox app that I have on my phone, Coming Right Up by Bruce Willis is in like my top 10 plays. You know, that is a capital B for Bruce banger right there. But this is some sad news right here. Last week, I think a lot of people were shocked by this. And I mean, I think, it is shocking. It is shocking is that Bruce Willis is going to retire. He is retired now, effectively from film, from acting, diagnosed with aphasia, which I think a lot of us had to Google. It's a cognitive disorder that affects a person's ability to communicate. It often develops in people who have suffered from strokes or other head trauma, you know, which kind of makes sense, at least the latter for Bruce Willis. And this was rumored for a while, because if you've kept your finger on the pulse of Bruce Willis as of late, Bruce Willis has done a lot of schlocky third-rate action movies. The guy has done, I looked it up and I tallied it even too, 22 movies in the last 4 years. And I'm willing to bet most of them you haven't even heard of. I'm willing to bet you haven't heard of any of them. The only one that really stuck out to me was Midnight in the Switchgrass with Megan Fox. The only reason I knew that one is because they actually recycled the exact same photo of Bruce Willis for that movie as they did in another movie. That shows you the kind of level of these movies that he was a part of these last 4 years. The Razzies, which now retroactively looks like oof. The Razzies devoted an entire category to him for worst Bruce Willis performance because he did 8 movies alone in the year 2021. But this has been rumored for a while, though, is that he's been suffering from dementia. That was the rumor, because there was a lot of people. And if you went on like film Twitter, quote unquote, or a couple of these like Mashable, like movie sites, there was a few articles that were talking about people who have worked with him. And it was like, it wasn't like a derogatory, like, oh my God, he was insufferable or he didn't want to do anything. No, it was like from a point of concern. It was like, he's not doing well and he has an earpiece or an earwig where we feed him his lines, or his lines have to be like drastically cut so they could be like efficient as possible. He only works a couple days out of the week. And it was like a collective call for concern of what was going on with Bruce Willis. And I'm trying to remember the last time he was in like a big movie. I'm trying to remember the last like big thing he did off the top of my head.
The Expendables, I think.
I think it had to be The Expendables. And he did A Good Day to Die Hard. That's even several.
Oh, right. Oh, no. I think that one. Yeah.
But yeah, he's been, like I said, I mean, he's been doing movies. And I think the goal with these movies, I don't know if it was explicitly stated, but I think the goal with these movies was for him to just get as much money as he possibly could while he could to secure his family, his daughter Rumor, to just secure his family. Although I have a hard time believing Bruce Willis was ever hurting. I don't think Bruce Willis is Nick Cage with his money. But it's sad nonetheless, because you know what? Like, great people, great actors, great individuals. I don't care if you're a great salesman, great plumbers, great broadcasters, nobody deserves this, but especially greats in their field deserve a curtain call worthy of their career or worthy of them as people. And it's sad that now what's probably going to wind up happening with Bruce Willis, to no fault of his own, to no control of his own, he's probably going to go out the Glenn Campbell way. Yep. Like, he's going to go out like country singer Glenn Campbell, where you seldom hear updates. Maybe you get a documentary, although I don't even think I'd want that, truthfully, because that Glenn Campbell documentary was brutal to get. Like, not bad, but just brutal, emotionally brutal.
Yeah.
You're going to wind up getting to a point of like, and I hate to say it, but like, you're probably going to get sparing updates on his condition, and they're not going to be good updates. They're not going to be good updates. And then eventually the inevitable is going to happen. And it's going to be very shrouded in secrecy, reclusiveness. And that is so unfair. That is fair. I keep saying this ever since my mother died. Fair applies to Ferris wheels and funnel cakes. It does not apply to life. And that couldn't be truer. I think when we all saw the news about Bruce Willis. Dom, you're chomping at the bit. I'm talking too much. What do you have to say?
It's just a sad situation. It's the long goodbye that either with this condition or dementia or a terminal illness, it's bad, and you hate to see it happen. And it's like, it really dawned on me that this was going to be how it happened when I read a New Yorker article on Bruce Willis, and the beginning was like some stories on how we got here, or like the contextualizing the past few movies or the past decade or so of Bruce Willis's seemingly bad career, but then it just started going over like his whole life as an actor. I'm like, oh damn, this is kind of like a eulogy in a way. This is like the article that they put out when you go, and I kept seeing it through other publications. Like, yeah, this is it. This is the long goodbye, and it's gonna be really, it's just really sad. Quick aside, I don't think the Razzies should feel bad about it. Like literally no one knew that this was happening. Totally fair game if you made fun of Bruce Willis's career before the announcement. And it's like no one knew. It's like, yeah, if he was hiding the fact, then sure, yeah, you can make fun of him all he wants. That's what he's I respect him enough as an artist to say that his art was trash in those years. But yeah, considering today and considering that but at the same time, I also respect that is what he was doing for his family in the face of all of this. So it's particularly, I think with Glenn Campbell, that was bad. But for Bruce Willis, he's like, for guys our age, right? He's just been there always because we grew up with him as the action star. Obviously Schwarzenegger, Stallone, and all pretty much the Expendables, right? The oldest of the Expendables.
Planet Hollywood.
Yeah, they were action stars too. Quintessential Hollywood action star. You think Hollywood action? Oh, okay, yeah, those guys. But Bruce Willis is a little closer because he came a little later. He's a little younger in that sense. And Die Hard, of course, was a little more towards our generations. We were still, when did it come out? 89. So I don't think we were even born yet, but a little closer to us than like say the first Terminator movie. And yeah, dude, watching Bruce Willis movies with my dad like that, I think every guy particularly is like, yeah, watching Bruce Willis movies with my dad, watching Die Hard with my dad. The Fifth Element too.
That's The Fifth Element. That's watching Bruce Willis movies with my dad. That's, you know what that is? That's the title of a really good country song.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Riley Green, get on that.
So I think this one's the fact that it's going to be really drawn out and sad. This is going to be a slow burn. And it's gonna suck, Joe. I don't know I don't know what that's there to add, man.
Follow this uplifting conversation.
Yes, I will follow it with more uplifting takes here that we've been giving the entire time. It just sucks to hear because, there's other actors I've read, like Emilia Clarke suffered this, which led to her making her charity and everything. When she first got done making the first season of Game of Thrones, Sharon Stone is another actress that suffers from this as well. But Bruce Willis, it sucks seeing someone at this age deal with it too. Because we know, the guy's got not much left. And if this is happening now, it's just going to shorten everything even more. That, everything Steve was hitting on, where it's we'll get those updates here and there. It's Bruce Willis, blah, 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 blah. Bruce Willis, this and that. And it's just going to be I'll see it, I'll be like, shit, and I'll send it to the Sleepless with Steve chat. Be like, man, he's doing worse.
The worst is going to be the reports. The worst is going to be Bruce Willis lost the ability to speak reports. You know what I mean? That's what you're going to get, though. That's what's going to happen.
And it sucks because, plenty of my friends, they have their favorite 80s action stars, and it's always, for some reason, for most of them, it's either Stallone or Arnold. For me, it was always Bruce Willis because I thought Die Hard was the best of those action franchises, especially Die Hard with a Vengeance, which I know Steve agrees with me on, is the best of that franchise, and I think one of the best action movies in general, along with the first one.
That's a gold standard movie.
Yeah, for me, it's always been hey, Bruce Willis to me, he's an amazing action star, but also he's good at just dramatic acting as well. Sixth Sense, Moonrise Kingdom. Other films he's done that I'm just he can go beyond action, which is why I've always liked him and everything. And yeah, I used to take pop shots at him when I saw his, Redbox DVD, collection series that he did.
That's what it was. That's what it was. That's where you would see the new Bruce Willis movies in the damn Redbox.
Yeah, it's just there he is, old Brucey boy. Maybe he'll appear someday on the big screen again. But then reading this, it's shit, okay, that's why he was doing all those fucking movies then. Yeah, it just sucks to hear. I hate hearing it. I'm saddened by it. And I wish him, I know he won't see this, but I wish him and his family the best of luck. And, whatever time he has left before, the inevitable happens with this disease, I hope he enjoys it. I hope he gets, he lives his best.
The roast of Bruce Willis on Comedy Central where Demi Moore shows up at the end, that was gold. The Demi Moore's bit or like her thing wasn't as good as the reveal, but that reveal was golden and I loved it.
I forgot. I don't think I've seen the Bruce Willis roast.
It's pretty decent. There's better ones, but like
I don't think I've seen that one, honestly. There hasn't been a Comedy Central roast in years, has there been?
Was it the pandemic or no? It was before that.
The last one
I don't want to get
Bieber.
Bieber was the last one, I think. I don't remember them. They do them so infrequently. I don't remember the last one.
Sure.
I think it had to be Bieber. No, it was Alec Baldwin. That was the last. Oof. Oh man, we're just walking on rakes at this point. We're just walking at rakes. So thankfully, we didn't make a joke as bad as Amy Schumer's alleged Oscar joke involving that. That was awful. Did you guys see that?
Oh no.
Did you guys see that? What was it?
I was playing a mini game with Chelsea on Mario Party. No,
while
I spared myself.
While we have a moment, that was a really good talk about Bruce Willis too. You know, you hope for the best, but you prep for the worst on that. No, but the last thing I'll say, we're not going to make this a segment, obviously, but like Amy Schumer, I want to make sure I get the joke right. Amy Schumer had this joke about "Don't Look Up" that like people told her, "Don't say it. It's not funny. It's not funny." And she comes out like, "I wasn't allowed to say this joke." And you got to be pretty ballsy when everybody gives you good advice not to say a certain joke to then come out and say it and then get dragged again for it when people were trying to protect you. Amy Schumer's "Don't Look Up" joke was going to be "Don't Look Up" as the name of a movie, more like "Don't Look Down the Barrel of Alec Baldwin's Shotgun." And then you know what would have happened?
It could
and
be
that
good.
arousing silence that we gave was probably the response that she got as well.
And then you know what would have happened? The next thing would have been the damn Ukraine commercial where Helena Hutchinson's parents are.
Oh,
at.
Jesus Christ!
Like like,
on paper
joke.
On paper, to be fair, on paper that joke could be good. A context, I don't know. Delivery, I don't trust Amy Schumer with it. I trust other female comedians, but not her.
It's a bad seg to begin with because it's not like "Don't Look Up" deals with guns. You know what I mean? It's not like there's not a connective
Alec
tissue.
Baldwin's not even in the movie, so
there's no connective tissue. That's why the joke doesn't land. I'm all for a bad joke. As somebody who likes to make bad jokes, I'm all for a bad joke. Before the whole shit hit the fan with the Chris Rock Will Smith thing, I did laugh at that G.I. Jane joke. I'm a fan of the bad laugh, okay? But like you gotta be funny. That's the hard part. But we're early. We'll wrap it up here. Next week, we're reviewing Ambulance. I had every intention to review Everything Everywhere all at once, but the two theaters out here, which are very nice, which are an upgrade from the last two theaters I would go to, the theaters out here decided to wait an extra week before they got Everything Everywhere all at once. So I got Nothing, Never, Not at All over here. So I'm stuck seeing Ambulance. I'm stuck seeing Ambulance and Sonic 2. That's my weekend. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. Ambulance, Everything Everywhere all at once. We will be talking about the following week. And then Apollo 10.5, which I can't wait for. That movie I saw on a total damn whim. I didn't know that thing was out until April 1st. There was going to be a new Richard Linklater movie. And your boy is a huge Richard Linklater fan. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big Richard Linklater fan. So, he's a gem. He's a friggin' gem. There's not been a director that I can really think of, an American director, who has tried so many different styles of movies and has consistently knocked each one out of the park. Everyone is at least, he loves baseball. Everyone is at least a triple. In terms of quality, I can only think of two lackluster Richard Linklater movies. He's great. Even his Bad News Bears remake is pretty good.
Everybody gives crap to that movie. I actually think it's a decent remake. I'll die on that.
That movie is not bad. That movie is not bad as far as baseball movies go, and it's really held together by Billy Bob Thornton. But we will talk Apollo 10.5 at the end of the month. I can't wait for these gents to see the rotoscoped, beautiful movie that is Apollo 10.5. But we got Ambulance next week. Far different from Coda. This kind of concludes our Oscar talk until next year, at least, for better or for worse. For the better, given what this year turned out to be. That'll do it for Sleepless with Steve. Highlights posted on my YouTube channel on which you're watching this video right now, as well as StevePulaski.com, where you can see my review of Coda. You don't even have to dig for it. It's right at the top of StevePulaski.com. Check out my written review of that. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, my two inadmittable legs of the tripod over here, this has been Sleepless with Steve.